Oh, well, hey, it's fancy seeing you here. We're back, so just sit back, relax. Matter of fact, grab yourself a margarita, cue the Jimmy Buffett. It's 5 o'clock somewhere as we are wasting away in Gallagher, Iba again. But have no fear because the 24 football schedule is here.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, you guys. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel because right now, all you got to do is throw down a little $5 bet. And if it wins, you get $200 back in bonus bets. So make sure you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. We are going to get started right off into football because basketball's just, it is what it is. From a football perspective, the schedule is out. We get to talk about the schedule. Now, there's a multitude of ways that we can break this thing down. One of the ways I want to handle it is kind of what should happen with the schedule, right? If all things are considered equal. And then where the transfer portal could potentially shift some of the teams predicated upon that. When you look at Oklahoma State's schedule this season, we do know that South Dakota State to start the season in Stillwater is not going to be an easy task. They're the back-to-back FCS national champions, and they've won like 29 games in a row. Not going to be easy, but should be a W. Same with Arkansas coming to town the following week. The vaunted middle-of-the-pack SEC squad will provide a test, of course, but again, should be a W. Just like the next week where we have our first road game just up the road in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as we take on the Golden Hurricane. Again, we've got some talent. I think a lot of people do believe in Kevin Wilson, but it should be a W. If we're sticking just on what should happen on paper type of scenarios, when Utah comes to Boone Pickens Stadium the next week, it technically should be a loss, all right? Then we go to Manhattan. Manhattan is a difficult place to play. Oklahoma State, K-State's always a 50-50 proposition, regardless of where the game is being played. But K-State lost some dudes, not necessarily the overall numerical value, but the guys they lost leads me to believe we should win that game. We have 20 and a half of our 22 starters returning. They do not. West Virginia, thank goodness we get them at home in Stillwater. That should be a W. If that's in Morgantown, that's probably a loss, y'all. Then we head to Provo, Utah to take on BYU. Should be a W. Then we get to stay on the road in Waco, Texas, take on Baylor. Definitely should be a W. Arizona State, they've done some stuff, but the numbers game, the depth game, still not quite where they need to be. It is also in Stillwater. Should be a W. TCU on the road. I think this should be a loss, right? Texas Tech, another one of those that thank goodness we get them at home because the war of attrition should help us out here, especially this late into the season. Texas Tech is really good with Baron Morton. They're really average, seemingly, without Baron Morton. What is Baron Morton going to look like this late in the season? Who knows? Should favor the Cowboys at home, followed by our trip back to Boulder, Colorado, which I'm selfishly pretty daggone excited about, just like I'm selfishly pretty daggone excited about the trip to Provo, Utah. But whenever you look at this schedule, in conjunction with the fact that we're returning 20-ish and a half of our 22 starters, I believe that the line, the overall line, likely should be right in that 8.5 range. If it is, let's say the over-under line is at 8.5. Are we going to hammer the over? No, but we still will be at least lightly tapping over the over. 9-10 wins should be the expectation. It's the Big 12. We're not going to go unscathed. We're probably not just going to lose one game either because this conference is pretty crazy. But in all my time watching Oklahoma State, I cannot recall not just Oklahoma State, but any other squad in darn near 21 of 22 returning starters. Arlington or bust was the mantra before the schedule came out. Now that the schedule's come out, that still definitely needs to be the mantra. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not murderer's row either. I would classify the schedule as very manageable. Manageable enough, we should definitely end up back in Arlington. So whenever you take into consideration the multitude of factors that can go into the schedule, we're going to have guests come on and talk about the schedules as well, break down some of the different games. So what I wanted to do for this one is just about what the transfer portal could potentially do to add to this equation. So when you look at the rivals and the Scout and On3 and Sports Illustrated, ESPN, the common consensus is Colorado and TCU not only have the best recruiting classes or transfer classes in the Big 12, but they're both like right around top 5 in the country in transfer portal classes. So TCU, Colorado, when it comes to the portal, they should, at least in conversation, be in a little bit of a different playing field. But I want to go with this article I found because I think they did it the right way, and it gives us a little bit more nuance, right? So this is going to come to us from College Football Network, and they have Arizona classified as 16th place when it comes to the transfer portal. Now, I know that the number that you brought in isn't necessarily indicative of what spot you were in, right? Arizona is a little different. We know that they're going to have to replace a large portion of their coaching staff, right? Because the coaches obviously left. Now, most of their talent, I would say 80%, 85% of their talent did definitely stay, but there is a war of attrition that we are going to have to talk about throughout the course of the season. Arizona's got a lot of talent, but if you use 16, 17 dudes and you only bring in 4, to me, that seems slightly problematic. I know you're talented, and I know a lot of the talent's back, but the Big 12 is just different than the Pac-12, and I know some don't want to hear it, and they're just going to have to see it in existence to believe it, but it is what it is. So let's jump to number 15 on their list, which is Iowa State. Iowa State had like 10, 11 guys go out. They only brought in like 3 guys. But kind of like Oklahoma State and even KU, they don't necessarily need a bunch. What they did need was some help offensively. They have weapons, right? I think Rocco Beck could be a very, very good back, but they couldn't push the ball much down the field. Getting Alston in, wide receiver from Army, is he going to wow you? No, but at almost 22 yards per catch, that should wow you. So that's going to help them quite a bit. All right, and we kick down from Iowa State. They have State, number 14 here, because they only brought in four dudes. They lost 15 guys. But to me, it's not necessarily about the number. To me, you could kind of get away with the number a little bit easier, but it's the guys that lost. They lost Will Lee. They lost Rashawn Ward. They lost Will Howard. They lost Kobe Savage. They lost RJ Garcia. So it's not just that they lost, 15, 14, 16-ish people, and they only brought in 4 or 5 to help. It's the fact that they lost critical guys. K-State's still good. We all know that. But I think it could bite them a little bit more than people might consider. All right, they have Oklahoma State here, number 13. As we all know, we brought in 6 dudes. We had 8 dudes go out. I really like what we got. I actually really like the wide receiver, Dawan Lofton, that we just got from Virginia Tech as well. Because when you lose Arlen Bruce to the level, that takes away that extra dynamic layer that you had with Brennan Presley or behind Brennan Presley. He's going to help fill that void, much like A.J. Green's going to help fill the void at RB2 with Jaden Nixon, taking his talents elsewhere, to have that lightning package to go the Thunder. That is Ollie Gordon. Tight end transfer Tyler Foster should be able to fill right in where Josiah Johnson left off. So I don't mind, right, Oklahoma State being here because we only lost a handful, so we only needed a handful. So mathematically, it makes sense. They have number 12 here, the West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia had like 14 dudes come out, 7 in. Getting Jaden Bray from Oklahoma State is going to be awesome to watch, right? We're going to cheer him on every game because Jaden Bray showed flashes of Bryant level capabilities. He just didn't have the consistency, nor did he have the ability to stay completely healthy long enough to really showcase everything he can do. So I do hope West Virginia gets that out of them because they definitely got a good one. And TJ Jackson, defensive tackle transfer from Troy, could be another good one. I'm really, really, really happy we get them at home because I do think that they're going to be a problem on the road. Number 11 here, they have BYU. This one it's perplexing. They only brought in 4 guys, 2 of which being quarterbacks. They brought in Trayson Bourgeau from Western Michigan, but they brought in Jerry Bohannon, the same former Baylor Jerry Bohannon that lost his UCF, that Jerry Bohannon. Now, Jack Kelly, I do think is going to be a pretty good defensive end from Weber State. But speaking of Weber State, guys, whenever we continue to go through some of the transfer portal stuff, we'll talk about the Big 12, right, and kind of where it stands. Not that transfer from every different level is going to be equal, right? We don't know that. But for all the negativity the Big 12 has received over the last few years, to look at a lot of these destination places or players are leaving big-time programs to come to Big 12 schools, it definitely does give us the warm and fuzzies in Big 12 country about where we are looking. All right, number 10 here would be KU. KU, they only lost 6 dudes, so they only brought in 6 dudes, right? That's the epitome of efficiency. And you all know how they got Deshaun Hanukkah from Iowa State. I don't know how they pulled that off. I mean, good for them, right? Good for them. Stealing Daryl Simmons from Iowa State's a little perplexing as well. It should add a little luster for a potential Iowa State KU matchup. All right. Number 9, they have the Utah Utes. This is kind of dumb. Utah had like 16 dudes go out, including most of all of their important pieces in the back end of their defense. They brought in 9 guys, and they did bring in some talent. Absolutely, they brought in some talent. Dorian Singer has shown the capability to be a blue chip style guy. Cameron Calhoun, the cornerback transfer from Michigan, is a certified dude. That's going to be an absolute problem for everyone else. But whenever you look at it as a whole, I don't think that number makes sense. I don't think that the vaulted ceiling that Utah seems to be thrust into, to me, it just I don't know if it makes complete sense. They're going to be really, really good. It should be, right, an Oklahoma State Utah style Big 12 title game. But I don't know. I don't know if I love numerically how that works out for them. All right, number 8, Cincinnati Bearcats brought in 16 dudes, lost like 23 dudes. Corey Kiner's coming back. That's a big deal. They got James running back from Georgia. They got Evan Pryor running back from Ohio State. Offensively, right, that's a big deal. But when you lose Byron Threat and Deshaun Pace and your best tight end, that hurts. Now, again, they brought in some talent. I just don't know that it's quite the way they need it to. UCF. I think UCF here at number 7 brought in a lot of talent, but I don't think KJ Jefferson is necessarily one of the best of the bunch. Sean Pace, I cannot believe they stole him from Cincy. That's a deal. But Timmy McClain's a pretty good quarterback. I think he's like light years behind KJ Jefferson. But on top of KJ Jefferson, obviously we talked about Brian Threats, right, from Cincinnati. Miles Montgomery, pretty daggone good running back from Cincinnati. The KJ Jefferson thing, though, I just I'm not completely sold. I'm not completely sold on Gus Malzahn being really good at the job. All right, number 6 here, they have the Houston Cougars. Houston brings in 18 dudes after losing 12 dudes, but we could stop, skip, whatever this conversation with the word Willie Fritz. Guys, Willie Fritz is bringing a bunch of dudes over from Tulane that were like all-American guys like Kentrell Webb, Corey Platt, Keith Cooper. He brought in most of the coaches also with him. But do I think that they're going to be able to win immediately right away? Maybe not for a Big 12 title type of conversation. But by 2025, Houston's going to be dangerous with Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz is a Lance Leipold problem all over again. I love the fact that they got Zion Rist, the quarterback as Louisiana. I think he's going to be a big-time guy. Baylor Bears, DeQuan Finn, the Toledo quarterback, is legitimate. And, I didn't realize they'd only lost like 7, 8 guys. So they had to bring in like 9 guys. Unfortunately, their team was just not very good. And I don't know if DeQuan Finn's going to be quite enough. So time will tell. Number 4, Arizona State. Arizona State loses 18, brings in 22. Mathematically, that makes sense. And they brought in some dudes. I think Raleek Brown obviously could be a very, very big deal coming over from Ohio State. Or USC, sorry. And I also definitely think that Cole Martin coming over from Oregon on the defensive side of the ball is going to be big for them. Jordan Cook is a really good linebacker coming from Arkansas. They've got weapons. I kind of like it. Number 3 here, Taco Recum Tech. They brought in 12, lost 18. But they had a really good class last year. They had a really good high school class this year to go alongside this really, really good transfer class. Yeah, Texas Tech's going to be a problem. They just are. Caleb Douglas, Texas Tech wide receiver, he's an issue. Davion Carter, the Memphis transfer, offensive lineman. They got Jalen Conyers from the tight end from Arizona State, and they got John Carlos Miller II, the tight end from Elon, that I selfishly wanted really, really bad. Yeah, Texas Tech's going to be a problem, especially if Baron Morton can stay healthy. So they have Colorado's number 2. A lot of publications have Colorado, TCU kind of flipped here. But as you know, they brought in 23 dudes after losing 13 dudes. Getting Chamon Mateer, the tight end from Cincinnati, it's a wild deal for them. But on top of that, if you're talking like the who's who are the blue chip 4-star guys that are flooded the Big 12 rosters, it's going to be TCU and Colorado, mainly even Colorado. Now, they have a really good get that they stole from us. Cornerback DJ McKinney. He's going to do major, major, major things for them. The defensive tackle from Houston, that kind of bothered me, right? On Houston's behalf, I didn't like that a whole heck of a lot. But when you look at some of the other pieces that they got, right? The LSU, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Pitt, Bama, they're going to be a major player here, just like TCU. TCU scares me. Not just because of the fact that they only lost like 11, 12 dudes and then brought in almost 20 dudes. It's not just a number. The talent's there. Amarian James is an NFL corner all day, every day. Guys, I mean, we already know exactly what Drake Dabney can do at tight end. We already know exactly what Remington Strickland is as an offensive lineman, as do we know quite a bit about Cade Bennett as well. Eric McAllister, pretty good wide receiver from Boise State. So whenever you look at the transfer side of things, now obviously the numbers are going to change, but they shouldn't change much for Oklahoma State. The goals should still be the same. Whenever you look at, there's teams that have, 25, 29, 31, 35 transfers out there. So to see like the work the Big 12 is going to have to deal with is Cincinnati with 23, but everybody else, 16, 18, 15, and then you have your Oklahoma States, your KUs, your Baylors, down there with the 6, 7, 8. But the number of guys that you bring in, it doesn't always have a direct reflection, but typically it does, right? Can we say that's fair? Can we say that that's typically fair here? Another thing that we can all say is typically fair is to get right with FanDuel. Got to get your money right as the Super Bowl is around the corner. And really, it doesn't matter if there's portions of the lineup or the matchup that you do or don't love. Everybody should love the money, honey. Do yourself a favor, okay? Get in on the action right now. You can bet on a multitude of things. Who's going to score the next touchdown? How many points are going to be scored? The overs, the unders, the play props. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? And obviously, much, much more. New customers, join today. And you get $200 back in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 is a winner. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up today. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So now we skedaddle off of football, all right? But that was a nice little whetting of the appetite to now talk about the state of affairs with Cowboy basketball. The last conversation we had was, well, we're one more, big loss away from this being a foregone conclusion. And then he magically won a couple games. But then Houston happened. And if Chad Weiberg needed any, I hope and pray that he doesn't, because I do know that basketball and algebra does mean a lot to Chad Weiberg. So I know this whole process this year has been pretty frustrating. I'm hoping that the cherry on top was Fran Fraschilla on national television talking about Oklahoma State being a JV squad that might be pretty good in a few years. If this roster sticks together in a few years, they'll probably be pretty daggone good. No. That should be the line in the sand for Chad Weiberg. When the building your brother played in, the building that you grew up loving, has national media pundits on live air calling your program a junior varsity, there's your sign. As Jeff Foxworthy would say, here's your sign. This whole dog and pony show has just got over, and it sucks. Like, there's not a better person in the world than Mike Boynton. He might already have earned a statue, maybe a little baby statue, but a statue nonetheless of like the greatest recruiter in basketball history. I don't know. I can tell you that this can't go on. And if there was any inclination for Mike Boynton to try to get another year of benefit from Chad Weiberg, that should be gone now. Now, I can say there's a way that we can still salvage at least a little taste of this season. And that's with 2 Bedlam games coming up. Let's get some Bedlam W's, please. Here, we can't win them all. Well, we can't really win a whole lot of them, especially from the men's side of the court. So if we can just get Mike Boynton to go out on the shield with a couple Bedlam W's, then I think most of us will just chalk that up as okay. Is it great? No. Are we excited? No. But why not say, we got some Bedlam W's in one of our worst years ever, at least in my lifetime. There was some years under Travis Ford that were frustrating. We're past frustration with Mike Boynton and this Cowboy basketball squad. We've got talent. But again, the youth is a Mike Boynton problem. Yeah, 2-3 years from now, this basketball team should be pretty good. But if you go back 2 years ago or even last year, what would this Oklahoma State team look like with some Rondell Walkers still on the roster, with some Avery Andersons or some Caleb Boones or some Keela Boones or some Musa Cisse's still on this roster? Because that's what Fran Fraschilla is basically getting at, is if this squad stays together in the next few years, they're going to be really good. But Mike Boynton, for all of his successful recruiting, he hasn't been phenomenal at retention of upperclassmen. This should be a roster right now loaded with a bunch of seniors, like a bunch of seniors. But instead, we've got like one or two. Not an ideal scenario. And then we've been pumping and poking and prodding as much as we physically possibly can to try to get as many butts in the seats to have some semblance of an experience of what Gallagher IBA is for J.C. Hoyt and women's basketball. But we all know we've been playing with fire. We've been playing with fire for a hot minute. We're about this daggone close to TCU and ourselves. It's not a Mike Boynton roster mismanagement situation by any stretch, but we relied on some massive Georgetown transfers to be like the catalyst, to go alongside Hannah Gusters, to allow Anna Gradasi to stay on the outside and to help drop dimes. And then injuries popped up and the bench got short. And it's been rough, right? We're like hovering on that bubble, maybe not. We would have taken care of business against OU in Gallagher IBA, then we're not floating on the outside of the bubble. We're floating on the inside of the bubble. We still have a lot for, thankfully, but I tell you, it's slightly concerning when you only have 8 players at your disposal and you're still waiting on the K-State player to be released by the NCAA. That would help tremendously, but you don't have it. So you're kind of having to tinker around with manipulating and foul trouble, and you know that has an effect in practice as well. So the preparation is not quite the same. I think it would be a travesty if J.C. Hoyt didn't find a way to get into the tournament. Like, I know you're playing a not very stacked deck here, but just like Mike Boynton's the reason that this current basketball team is not loaded with seniors. I mean, maybe we bet on the wrong horses in the transfer portal, right? Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe we didn't hammer the high school class hard enough the year previous. There's reasons that we're having to play with like 7 players all the daggone time. But we are wasting away all of the gloriousness that Gallagher IBA is. And there's no more time to wait on men's basketball. Guys, there's some good candidates, some really good candidates. Steve Lutz, I think, is a good hire. Joe Pasternak would be a good get, thanks to my buddy Sean Bennett. But I also think that if you brought Doug Gottlieb in and let's say he was to grab a Brian Montanati, let's say he was to maybe grab a Desmond Mason, maybe Brooks Manzer would like to do a little bit more. You'd have more butts in the seats than you do now. No questions asked all day, every day. And the recruiting probably wouldn't drop off all that much. I don't care who we hire. I just think that the situation that we're in and the buyout scenario we're about to be faced with, we should give Dougie G a legitimate look. I mean, heck, he's been an analyst to prove that he wants to be here. I don't think he anticipated all of this stuff going so negative with Mike Boynton so quickly, right? But he's here. He wants to be here. There's some guys we should try to go get, but if we can't get them, Bring somebody who would put butts in the seats, and you know the name on the court matters so much, he's going to try to get it right. Just like you can do the right thing if you feel so inclined to just go over there and throat punch that daggone like button. Y'all know I love you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. All right, y'all. You know the drill. Feels good to be back. I don't know if the upgrades are good. Now this face for the radio waves might not look so YouTube camera ready. I don't know. You guys let me know. All right, y'all. Later, taters.